If workplace culture is your jam, you're in the right place. Check out this episode of Culture Secrets, the podcast dedicated to creating workplaces where both employees and the companies thrive.
In this episode of the Culture Secrets podcast, you're going to hear a conversation that goes beyond buzzwords and straight into what workplace culture really looks like when it's lived out day to day. Chellie sits down with Bob Brown. At the time of this interview, Bob Brown served as plant manager of Yamaha's Noonan facility and has since assumed the role of president of Yamaha Motor Manufacturing Corporation. They share a candid discussion about leadership, trust, accountability, and what it takes to build a culture where people want to stay, grow, and contribute. Together, they explore how culture shows up on the shop floor, in the community, and even in the way leaders listen, especially during times of change and growth. You'll hear real-world examples of employee engagement, multi-generational teams working side by side, and why continuous improvement isn't just a process, but a mindset. If you're a leader trying to connect vision to action, or an organization looking to strengthen trust, retention, and purpose, this conversation offers practical insights you can apply immediately. Let's jump into Chellie's interview with Bob.
Yeah. Give me a little bit of background about you and about the plant here, the size, how many people you have, that kind of thing. I know y'all make the Wave Runner, but I didn't really realize it was just so specialized. When I think Yamaha, I think, all these different products, and didn't really realize that each one had its own little place that it was made. So.
Yeah. So I think that is a little bit unique at Yamaha. So here we have 2,200 people, about 280 acres and 1.4 million square feet under roof. I lived just right up the street from here for 12 years or so, drove by every day and had no idea what was back here. We assemble 4 main product lines: golf cars, ATVs, side-by-sides, and wave runners. And for those product lines, we distribute to the entire world. So if you ride a wave runner in Australia, it was built here in Noonan. The plant's been here since 1986, started production in 88. So coming up on our 35-year anniversary, and started off with just golf cars, and then they moved ATV production and then wave runner production. So kind of we've added product lines over time.
And y'all are going to have a big expansion too, right?
Yeah, we're adding what we call our smart warehouse. It will replace one of our current distribution centers with that. But what's unique about it is it has a lot of automation that will allow us to pick much quicker and reduce our lead time. So we're able to do basically shorter runs with more variation. The idea is to be more responsive. So when Chellie goes into a dealership and buys a blue RMAX 1000 2-seater with these options, we kind of take that trigger and we know we need to assemble one of those to replace that one that just sold. So really tying us to what's happening on the dealership floor and really being much more responsive to what's selling. And that way we're not just pushing a bunch of white ones out, and in the end, the blue ones are the ones that sell, right? So it's a way to reduce our lead time and our response time to the market. So it's an exciting project.
So the book's focused on culture and having kind of people first cultures, and how if you keep people at the center of what you're doing, then everything will work out. Both the company and the employees will thrive in that kind of environment. What do you think, what role does culture play in your ability to be able to attract and retain talent for the workforce that you need to get things done?
For us, it's kind of interesting. We're a part of this much larger global company. Yamaha makes not just motor products, but also the music products. There's a company culture for sure, but we kind of have enough of a, it's almost like we're large enough here on site that we have kind of our own local culture, I would say. And a lot of people, I think we have over 500 people that have been here for more than 10 years. So there's a lot of people that have been here for a long time. And we also have we've increased our headcount by 600 people over the last 3 years. So there's also a big pool of newer people. I think one thing that we realized that we didn't anticipate is as we've added all these new people, the culture becomes a really important thing to get people feeling like they're part of the same team. So it can be a little bit intimidating when you come into a company and you realize there's all these people with this really long tenure who've been here forever, right? We still have a couple of people that were here when we opened, but you want to leverage that experience, that knowledge, that history, but you also need to be very welcoming to new people and get them to feel like they're part of that culture too. You don't have to be here for 20 years before you feel like you're part of the family. And one of the ways we've done that is really recognizing that 55% of our workforce lives here in Coweta County. Many of them have students in the school system here. They have friends and relatives that have worked here or might work here. One of the things that we've done to try to be, what's the word I'm looking for, kind of recognized or to have a personality, if you will, is to be engaged in the community. So that's something Yamaha has always done, but kind of quietly behind the scenes. And over the last few years, we've seen that our team here really likes to see us out in the community doing things and having an impact and being a good corporate citizen. And it gives people a lot of pride to be a part of working here. And so we recognize that that's part of our culture, actually, is having that strong corporate citizenship type of policy and being engaged in the community. And we get people that'll stop by my office and say, hey, I was at a band competition and you guys sponsored it. And that was so cool. It was so cool to see our brand like right there at the competition. So I think that's a part of it for us that is a little bit unique. It's not something that I've experienced elsewhere.
I think that ties right in. Like a lot of the research now says that people want their work to matter and to have an impact. They want to be someplace that their mission, their values connect with the company that they're working for, that they're kind of all in alignment, that they care about the same things I care about. And I think the studies are showing that this next generation coming into the workforce now are really focused on mission and values. Speak to that a little bit about what are the values that Yamaha has that you think appeal to people when they come to work there?
Yeah, one of the benefits we have, again, thinking about like recruiting and retention, is that really strong brand. So we have these fantastic products that people really enjoy using. Many of them they're recreation products. They're for fun. So when you experience the Yamaha product, you're doing something fun with your friends, with your family. So the brand itself gives a really kind of a positive feel. It's not something anybody can't live without, but it sure does make life a lot more fun. And then if we can do that and still be very responsible, I think it really checks a lot of boxes.
So the book centers around I'm calling it value culture, around 5 key areas that culture needs to have to be successful. And the V stands for vision, the vision that the team has, the leadership has, the company has, to be able to recognize that there's things we need to change whenever we want to do. A is accountability, because someone has to take ownership for it to make it stick, make it happen, that kind of thing. L is leadership, because you have to have people to drive the ship. U is the uniqueness of the employees that you have and the workforce that you have. And then E is ultimately the engagement that comes from everybody being on the same page. So thinking about that model, I want to take the leadership role just a minute and like what you as a plant manager, you as a leader in that organization, how can you impact the culture that is there, and how you can really impart that with the teams that you work with and kind of drive it home on a daily basis?
Geez, Chellie, that was pretty deep. I think from a leadership perspective, a big part of it is the vision and understanding the vision and being able to articulate the vision and also demonstrate it personally. I think that's, at least to me, a big part of it. You can't just say the words, you have to demonstrate it as well. And I think people respond much more strongly to that. It's not just words on paper, it's action, and it's something that I can see, and that makes it more tangible and real. And then just speaking about how being a part of that culture, how it benefits you, why you appreciate it. So being able to explain, this is why I love working at Yamaha, for example. And doing that in a very sincere and honest way, I think goes a long way as well. And then when we think about, as far as our engagement in the community, being out there and being at those events and participating in it and being a part of it, not just cutting a check. There's a lot of companies that do a lot of great CSR stuff, but they do it primarily through funding organizations that are doing things. And that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But also being at the event or being a part of it or being a participant, I think is even more powerful. And what we've seen is the people who engage and do that, especially if it's something that they're passionate about, that helps to really kind of reignite that or close the loop. It's always interesting to hear people's feedback after they've participated in something we're doing in the community, or they go be part of a STEM camp at a school and we send some of our mechanical engineers to that. They love that stuff. I don't know if I very directly answered your question, but
You did. It's basically, you got to walk the talk too. So like they want to see it before they actually believe this is what you're going to do and that kind of thing. I think that's an incredible important piece of it. Talking about accountability, that one of the things that I've really been picking up on when I've been doing these interviews is that it can't just be the leadership team being accountable for the culture. It actually has to trickle all the way down to the very frontline people, that they have to take accountability as well and embrace it and be responsible for that. So taking that kind of tone, what is the role of the employee? Like, how involved are they at Yamaha in helping set culture, direct culture, or even kind of manage it to keep it the way that we want it to be?
yeah, I think a lot of that just kind of happens naturally. As I said, we've been really blessed to have great retention over the years. So we have a lot of people that are really passionate about what they do here and really, really enjoy it and recognize that we spend so much time at work. It would be a shame not to enjoy your time here. So one thing we tried doing with some really positive success was when we have a new person come in, partnering them with someone, giving them I don't want to say assigning a buddy, but connecting with someone to help make those connections and those ties. We know that a lot of our team members get together outside of work on the weekends. They do things together by choice. So building those connections and those relationships, I think, makes for a much stronger company culture. It's a shared thing, not just while you're here at work, but also outside. I think, and I really think a lot of the culture does bubble up. It starts at that level in a lot of ways. So you can set a vision, you can set a direction, you can define what's important to the organization. But a lot of that culture is feel and it's emotional. And it's not something you can define in a 3-year or 5-year strategic plan. It's really part of who you are. And that comes from all of the employees. They all define who you are as an organization. So I think that's really critical for culture. And then if you set your strategy correctly, it leverages that. It doesn't try to change it, or you can nudge it maybe a little bit in a certain direction, but you have to embrace what it is already and what you have within. And then that's when you really are able to develop a strategy that becomes powerful, I think. Not taking it, trying to force it into something it's not, but recognizing what you have and really leaning into it. Well, how do you make the most of it?
I think that's really key. Gallup just did a study about how important it is to have a friend at work like that, because you enjoy coming when you know you're going to see people that you enjoy being around. And I think a key thing of what you said was talking about how people have gotten to know each other and they even spend time together outside of work, which means that they have really gotten to know each other and form those relationships and bonds that kind of strengthen the whole work process as well, because they're working with people they enjoy being around. And then you said you've had a big influx of people coming in, plus you've got a group that's been there for a while. How do you think, or do you think it's the same? We're seeing a lot more like the multi-generational workforce where you have everything from your millennial all the way up to your baby boomers all working together. How do you see that? Do they mesh as the things that matter to each age group are the things that matter to each age group? Or are there different things that you're seeing in different sets of people that are really the triggers that are keeping them actually engaged and motivated?
I think there is commonality, but of course there's probably generational differences as well. But it's not just ages. I mean, people across the whole spectrum value different things, right? When you dig deep enough, you can almost always find something in common that you value. So for us, one good example is thinking about our products. A lot of people have their first experience with a Yamaha as a kid with a friend, family member, parent who went out and bought one of our products. And they remember when I was a kid, I used to ride on my uncle's Wave Runner, my dad's Yamaha dirt bike, my brother's ATV. I used to take it when he wasn't home. And they make that connection when they're young, and it tends to stick with them. And that's often what we hear from customers that are quote unquote new to the brand, is that they've already had some personal experience with the brand. I think that's one thing that we benefit from with this wide range of products that people connect with and enjoy because they're using them for fun. And whether you're 18 years old or you're 58 years old, you can still go out and have fun on a side-by-side or a Wave Runner. And that's something that you can enjoy and appreciate together because, again, it's recreation, it's fun, it's positive memories. Our goal is to create a lifetime of exciting and memorable experiences for our customers. That lifetime piece is key, right? It's something that we want you to experience over and over again in different ways, with different products, with different people, with the people that you hang out with, that you love, that are part of your family. Take a Wave Runner out with your kids, but it's that lifetime of exciting and memorable experience that I think is really important. So that helps us bridge across generations.
And the strategic plan is generally not something that you can kind of wrap your head around. I've yet to see somebody's budget that had a budget line that said, culture, here's the X number of dollar amount we're going to spend on culture. So if, as a leader in an organization, if you were looking to, you've noticed some things, like you said, there's some directions that we need to get a hold of. There's some things that we've been tracking, whether it's retention, whether it's being able to attract talent, whether it's engagement with our employees or whatever it is. How can you take that back and sell it to maybe an executive leadership team or something like that, that you can actually say, no, culture is going to impact us in a very positive way, even though I can't put necessarily a tangible budget item line number on it.
Yeah.
So as a leader, if you see things that are going maybe the wrong direction, whether it's you're seeing a higher turnover rate or you're seeing lessening productivity or something like that, how can you take these back and really convince an executive leadership team that, hey, we need to invest in some culture initiatives? And then where does it go in the overall figure? How do I come back as someone who maybe not being the one that's the ultimate decision maker, that said, hey, we need to focus on culture and this is why?
Yeah, one thing that we have a fairly new president here, and one thing that he's brought to the table that I think has been really effective is this idea of a proof of concept. You have a strategy and a tactic, maybe in your strategic plan. But before you commit to that for the next 3 or 5 years, how do you check and make sure that the logic is sound? That if you pursue this tactic, it'll really achieve that strategic objective. So we've, over the past year, been doing proof of concepts in many different areas, really in our strategic plan, really at what we would call our 4th level down, doing a proof of concept in each area to test that. And one of the cool things about that is it really makes you think about what's the benefit you expect to see. How would I measure that? Because to do a proof of concept, you have to be able to measure the result. Did it have the result that we expected? And sometimes just defining what to measure, especially around culture, can be one of the most difficult things to do. So one of our strategic pillars is what we call local branding. And that's not a marketing term. It's more our local brand internally in the community, with our employees, with our peers, our customers, our suppliers. So the brand means how do people see us, right? So we've been doing proof of concepts that are at a much smaller scale that are around this employee engagement, for example. And one way we've decided to test some of these concepts is to do a smaller activity that you can put your arms around more easily and a smaller group of people And maybe we surveyed them before and we surveyed them after this test to see what kind of impact did it have. Did it increase their perceived value of our brand? Did it increase it in the ways that we thought it would, in the specific areas that we thought it would? So this has become a really neat tool because it forces you to figure out, what am I going to measure to try to make this more objective, right? Less subjective, more objective, something I can measure, I can put my hands on, make it more tangible. And then really thinking through, sometimes just thinking through, how do I do a smaller test, gives you really good ideas on how do you roll it out more broadly. Now I've figured out what kind of the challenges are on a smaller scale, I can address those up front and make sure that's part of kind of the rollout in the grander scheme of things. It also allows you to move faster because now instead of pursuing this 5-year target, we're saying, no, don't even worry about what happens 3 years from now. What can we do now to test it? And then to move a little bit faster. And you realize once you tested the proof of concept, really you figured out most of what you needed to roll it out more broadly. So in fact, you've done a lot of the work already on the front end, and it actually allows you a lot more ease in deploying it on a broader basis.
I know one of the foundation pieces of cultures that are very successful is that they've been able to instill trust in their work and the workforce, that they have the trust that they can speak to leadership in a way that they need to let them know that's what's going on, or vice versa, that leadership will give them the information. And I think especially during COVID, the last few years, that's been even more solidified, the fact that employees want to feel like they can trust their employers and know that they're looking out for them and that kind of thing. How have you seen trust be implemented inside the Yamaha facility? Like how does that look on the inside there?
Yeah. So one thing that we do is every quarter we have all associate communication meetings. And it's not one meeting. It's really, I think, 11 meetings throughout the course of the day at every one of our 6 buildings on all 3 shifts. And the whole executive team goes and speaks in front of every single employee across the whole campus on the same day. And we share information about what's happened the past quarter. Where do we perform well? Where do we need to look to improve? What's coming up in the next quarter? What new challenges might be coming, or what's different, new, what's changing? And then critically, at the end of that, it's open to question and answer. They're not scripted. They're not pre-screened. You're welcome to ask whatever you like. We try to be very open and honest in our answers. And it was really challenging with COVID because we had to stop doing those in-person large group meetings. And we tried to replace it with video, but it really wasn't the same because you don't have that interactive component of it. And I think that's a big part of the trust. If you're just speaking to people in a pre-recorded message, it's not a two-way communication. And even just knowing that you're sitting there in front of the person and you could ask the question, even if maybe you don't, I think there's an element of trust in that as well. Wow, they're really willing to stand up here. I can't believe that guy asked that question, but I wanted to know the answer too. I think that's part of the trust, is having that open line of communication and being accessible. We have very much an open door policy. In our last quarterly all associate meeting, our president was talking about compliance and how it's important, whatever your role is in the organization, to be compliant, whether that's with you're in a role that might include chemicals that could be hazardous. So how do we make sure that those are handled appropriately? Or even we're a free trade zone, so trade compliance, right? There's a lot of elements of compliance. And he said, if you're not sure if you're compliant, like you don't have to wait till something bad happens. If you're just not sure that you're doing everything possible, feel free to come talk to me about it. We'll figure it out. And so when even your president has a very open door policy for every single person who works here, all 2,200 people, I think that demonstrates a lot of trust.
I think so. One of the things I'm seeing a lot in the research too is that employees want to be able to see that they contribute to the success of the organization. So what ways is that built into the culture at Yamaha?
Yeah, of course, manufacturing, in particular, a Japanese manufacturing company, the idea, the culture of continuous improvement is very strong. So something we call Kaizen. And one of the ways that we've implemented that here is by having a Kaizen program that every single person can participate in. And it doesn't have to be something that, makes Yamaha $10 million. It's any small improvement that you made. You document it, your supervisor signs off, and then we record it and we compile all of these. And I forget how many we did last year as a total organization. But I think the person who submitted the most, I want to say they have 200 Kaizen, or maybe it was even more than that. So it was a lot of little things, but those all add up. And we really celebrate this. We recognize some of the best ones each month. We have annual recognition for people who submitted the best or the most. And we also reward and you get credit for in the company store. You get Kaizen bucks that you can redeem for stuff, which by the way is mostly branded stuff, which is you get the dough way there. But also a part of our Kaizen is what we call our small group competitions. And we do this twice a year. Typically it's between 6 or 12 people, sometimes multi-departmental, and sometimes it's just within a department. But they follow the 8-step process for improvement. And they identify something that they want to improve, go through the 8-step process to realize that improvement. And then twice a year, the small group presents to the executive team, the leadership team. And that can be stressful for some of them. They're maybe not used to presenting at that level, but there's no free passes. You have to be there to be a part of it. And we try to the projects are always amazing. So these teams work together to come up with some really incredible improvements. And we try to really celebrate that. It's a really cool thing to see. And we really try to encourage people to engage in that way. So sometimes somebody might have an idea and it's too big for them to even think about how would I implement that. But that's usually where the best small team ideas come from. But somebody's seen something that's a problem or it could be better. And then creating this whole group around that opportunity to improve and really giving them all the tools and resources, the budget, whatever you need to achieve that improvement opportunity. We try to make sure we resource them with everything they would require to do it, no matter how big it is. So those are really cool. So the individual Kaizen program really does a lot of the small day-to-day incremental type improvements, but the small group program really empowers people who see something on the shop floor and gives them all the tools and resources they need to achieve it. It's really a cool thing to see.
And that is neat.
And it's not something that our VP of operations goes out there and says, hey, go fix this. It's really bubbled up through the bottom, which makes it really cool to see.
Yeah, like you're actually the people that have the hands-on that are making it happen are being able to make the improvements to what's going on. But yeah, I can see where that adds to all the buy-in too. If this works, then we're going to do it because we created it. And it's just this big full circle. I think that's really neat. I was sitting there thinking as you were talking about that, we do something similar here with our continuous improvement teams. And it started as a safety initiative and then it's moved into all other kind of processes and different things that happen and that kind of stuff. But it's funny. I was sitting here thinking the stories that I've been hearing are like the biggest killer of culture is that's not the way we've done it, or we can't change it because that's not how we've always, like if that's the way it's always been, that's the way it'll always be. And I think stuff like this is a real big fix to that. It allows you to get past that. Oh, I can't see past this because it's the way it's always been, to here's some suggestions coming from people that are actually doing it and can make it happen. So I can see where that's a big buy-in for people and stuff like that.
Yeah, honestly, when I was interviewing for this position almost 4 years ago, and everybody I interviewed with had been here for 20 plus years, and it was actually one of the things that made me a little bit nervous. Geez, everybody has all this travel knowledge, and does that mean the organization is going to be very hard to effectively change, really open to new ideas? But I was very pleasantly surprised that it has not been an issue at all. People are always willing to listen to the crazy new idea. And I think it comes from that continuous improvement culture. It really is part of the culture here. And it allows you to keep an open mind and listen to new ideas and really look for the value in it instead of looking for reasons it couldn't work.
Yeah, find the reason how instead of the reason how not to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I've seen that with across every functional area here. Not only are people willing to listen, but it doesn't have to be an expert in their field. It could be somebody from a totally different department, and they sit down on something and they say, why do you do it that way? Well, geez, I don't know. We've just been doing it. Didn't really think about it. Do you have another idea? And it's amazing how often that type of conversation happens, actually.
So you mentioned when you interviewed. Now, when you're doing interviews or interviews are taking place for the plant, how much is focused on being a cultural fit versus just the skills needed?
It's a big part of it, I think. And that's a really hard thing to put your finger on. So typically what we do is we tend to have a pretty wide range of people participate in the interview process, whether that's in a panel interview all at the same time or just a number of shorter interviews with multiple different people. And I think that's how we get consensus that the person would be a good fit for the culture, for the personality of the organization. We haven't figured out any magical way to do that with our questionnaire, but we just lean on everybody's gut feel. And we figure if we have enough people's gut, we can feel good that we're probably going down the right path. And really, the organization isn't afraid to say they just don't seem like a good fit. On paper, they have all the skills, but whether it's personality or whatever, it doesn't feel right. It probably isn't. And I think saying that it's okay to do that is a big part of it. If you don't feel good about it, you're going to be working with this person for the next 10 years. If you're not feeling good about it after your 15, 30-minute interview, how are you going to feel about it 10 years from now when you're still dealing with them every day?
Yeah, I always tell everybody, I said, would you want to be sitting next to them 5 years from now doing this job, or do you want to have lunch with them in the break room? It's like, if you can say yes to both of those, then that's probably an okay thing. It's so funny. A lot of people that I've been talking to, yeah, we can work with teaching skills, you said, but you can't work with people that just don't fit. It's like, you can't change their foundational views and values and that kind of thing. And you get a good feel of that just by talking to people a lot of times.
Yeah, that's part of the reason why Yamaha does a lot of promotion from within. And I think that's part of the reason for that, because we already know that person's a good fit, or they kind of show the spirit, the culture that we appreciate. And I think there's a lot of benefits from that, because you get to, instead of always going outside, developing from within, it helps you keep that continuity of culture, but it also shows people that you're willing to invest in them and help them get to the next level. And I think that's part of the reason why we have such great tenure with a lot of people, because if you start to get bored with something and you see something else that sounds like it would be more interesting, more exciting, how can we help you get there? Do you need to go to school for it? Pay your tuition. Do you need some specific classes or some technical skills? We'll encourage you and pay for that too, and then give you the opportunity to put them to use. We have a lot of very structured kind of development programs to help people get from an assembly operator to a utility, to a team lead, to a supervisor, to a manager. In fact, one of our division managers, so one level below vice president, it would be similar to a director in another organization. He started out as a third shift supervisor 25 years ago. There's a lot of examples of that. In fact, it's always interesting to hear people's story, all the different roles that they've been in. And sometimes I don't even realize it until I'll run across somebody on LinkedIn. And yeah, they've worked at Yamaha for 15 years, but there's 8 different positions that they've rotated through in those 15 years. And it's always interesting to see that. Where have they been in the organization? What have they done? And sometimes it's really very widely varied. You would never guess that that's the path they took to get to where they are today.
I think that's neat. I do that. I have an internal program that I run here at EMC, and we call it Vision EMC. And one of the sessions that I do, I bring in all of our VPs and then also Chris, our CEO, and their job is not to talk about what they do today, but it's the story of how they got to where they are. And people are always amazed at like all the different positions and all the different things and what is the background that got you to where you are, because everybody just knows you from where they came in at. And I think it's really helped with the groups to be able to connect with them as people. We're not just just because you have a set of initials or something after your name, like you're still people, and it's still about the relationship, and it's still about, I like football, and I like cooking out, and I like riding the motorcycle, and I like going to the beach just like you do. It's those kind of things. And so if you get to know me, then I think it allows you to be more comfortable to walk in and talk to me about things that are going on and what you might need to be successful in your position. It's always fun to me. It's like when you really sit on those days that I'm leading, I can sit and I can watch the reactions of people in the room as they're hearing these stories and stuff. And you can just see the moment that they're like, oh, really? That I would have never thought that they had this kind of experience. And so I think that's really neat. And I think it's also good, like you're talking about being able to promote so much from within, that's got to be a huge boost as employee engagement and everything as well, too, to see that there is this pathway to success and be able to hear it from people that are already there and have made those progressions.
Yeah, it's something we've been trying really over the last couple of years to share some of those stories to encourage people to take advantage of some of the programs. Exactly as you said, you may not realize that your unit manager started off as an assembly operator, and hearing that story can be it can be empowering. You realize all of a sudden that, geez, the sky's the limit, and I don't have to go somewhere else to do it. What we see in the professional world a lot is you have to make a move in order to get to the next level, it seems. And it seems like that's actually become more common, I would say, in the last 10 years than it was in the previous 10 years. So I think we're trying to make sure that we're not acting like that. We give those opportunities internally, or else people are going to seek them elsewhere.
I appreciate your time today, Bob.
It's my pleasure.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Culture Secrets. If today's conversation resonated with you, we'd love for you to share it with a colleague or friend. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. To learn more about building strong, people-first workplace cultures, visit www.chellephillips.com, where you'll find resources, speaking information, and more insights from Chellie. You can also pick up a copy of Culture Secrets at your favorite online or in-person bookseller. Thanks again for listening. And remember, culture isn't something you talk about once. It's something you live every day.